Hey there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and I picked up this beautiful A New Hope Hero DL-44 kit from Blaster Factory, and it is gorgeous. This is machined out of aluminum and then of course wood for the stock. Now, this came as a kit. I mean, a really nice kit, but a kit, which meant that there was some love that needed to go into this. And so over the next couple of videos, I'm going to take you through me going from out of the box to finished blaster. And yeah, I'm going to take you along on that journey. So the first thing that I'm going to take care of is arguably the most important piece to this blaster, in my opinion, the scope. The scope is what makes this blaster this blaster. This is what gives it the right profile, and in my opinion is the most important piece of this blaster. So let's get into it. Hi there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and today's order of business is constructing and weathering, at least a first round of weathering, for my scope for my A New Hope DL-44. This kit, if you guys haven't watched the announcement for this little series that's going on, this kit I got from Blaster Factory. This is all machined metal. So I believe the body of the scope is machined out of aluminum, and then I have a whole bunch of dilly-dads here that are machined out of brass, and these pieces are beautiful. I mean, the knurling on some of these knobs and the numbers that are stamped in here are just pristine. This is a very nice kit, and for the value you're getting, it's not listed for very much. This is a fairly inexpensive kit when you factor in the amount of precision detail you're getting in this kit. I'm really impressed that over at Blaster Factory they're able to produce a kit this intricate for such a low cost. I'm very appreciative. But today's order of business is constructing the site for my DL-44, and I have all of the pieces laid out in front of me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I think, is to do some light weathering on some of the brass pieces, because I'm going to do that before I assemble it, just because I don't want the weathering from these, at least the weather I'm going to start out doing, I don't want that weathering to bleed onto this, although it really wouldn't be the end of the world. But I think it'll work out better if I pre-weather the brass pieces a little bit before I assemble everything, and then once it's all put together, I'll do some final weathering and really tie it all together. But so for that, the first thing that I need to do is I'm actually going to kind of put the knob that goes on top together. I'll put that together. That way at least it's in a semi-together configuration. I'll weather that all together as one piece, and then I'll get these end pieces weathered before I attach their clear eyepieces to see through. So, yeah, let's put together the adjusting knob. All right, so as you can see, these are tiny, tiny little pieces, and it can be a little frustrating to put some of these together. The important thing is to just take your time and be careful. These are tiny pieces, and as far as I can tell, there aren't any extras of any of these little tiny screws or anything like that. So be careful, take your time, but I mean, these things are just engineered so nicely. Now, let's get to some weathering. What I did there was I just took some flat black paint and used my airbrush to put it basically all over these, because I'm going to be using a weathering technique that I don't think I've shown you guys before, but it's perfect for things like this where you have a piece of metal that you want to weather. So like I said, I took some flat black through my airbrush and sprayed it all over. Then I'm going to take some quadruple zero steel wool. You can buy steel wool at different grades, just like different grades of sandpaper. And this quadruple zero is pretty fine, but all I'm going to do is go through and just rough up the surface of this. Not pressing super hard or anything, but this will create a very realistic weathering effect, so that it looks like, I mean, essentially you're doing what actually causes weathering. If you have like a gun, or let's say in this case a scope that has metal bits on it, it'll get dirty, and then when it brushes up against something, it'll go back down to the metal surface where it got scratched. Or when you're, in this case for the knob on the top, when you're adjusting the scope, you're going to knock off some dirt on the high spots, but the dirt in the low spots is going to stay. So this is essentially, you're actually weathering it instead of man, I cannot think today. I can't think today. Simulating weathering. I mean, I'm using paint instead of real dirt or grime, but this look just has a very real finish when you're done, and it's my favorite way of weathering metal, especially because it just gives such a good realistic finish. And don't worry, I will give you guys a close-up look of how all these pieces look before I actually move on, so don't worry. All right, you guys, so I have my main brass pieces that are going to be on the outside of the scope anyways. I have all of those weathered. I'm liking the way they're looking. Now I need to, now that that's done, the reason that I did the weathering on those first is because I have to put in these glass pieces into the different sites. And that means, sorry I had those switched, and if I had put the glass pieces in first and then weathered them, I would have had black eyepieces on my scope. I would have had to try to look through glass pieces that had black paint on them, so that wouldn't have worked. So now I can put the lenses in, but Blaster Factory included these little decals to put onto the lens pieces before I install them, and I think they're pretty cool. I actually had no idea if these are canon or accurate to the screen use blaster, but I don't care. They're super cool and I like them, so I'm going to put them on. So these are actually both fairly big, and I don't know which one goes on which, but I also don't think it particularly matters. Which one? I definitely want this one on the big one. Yeah, and then we'll just see how that goes. So I am just going to take these off. Try to get it lined up on there the best that I can. And now that those are on there, or at least that one's on there, I can use my X-Acto blade to just trim off the excess. All right. There is one, and let's do the other. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave this one blank. I'm not going to put a decal on that one. And I have this one now for something else in the future. All right, so I have my little decal on there. Let me see if I can get it to show up for you guys. Pretty faint and red, so you can kind of see it. You can see that something is on there. It looks pretty cool. Okay, now I'm at the point where I can put the lenses into their brass pieces so that I can attach them all to the scope itself. And for that, it's actually pretty easy. You just put the plastic piece into its corresponding brass piece, and then he has these little spacers almost, but they act to hold the plastic piece in. And it's the same thing on both sides. Granted, one is some kind of rubber and the other one is also brass, but they do the same exact thing. They just keep it in there. But it's not a pressure fit. It's not going to stay just by itself. So I had to pick up some epoxy, and the reason I'm not just using super glue is because super glue has the tendency, it's a heat-driven thing with super glue, and because of that there's fumes that come off of it, and the fumes can cloud clear plastic or glass pieces, and I don't want these to be cloudy. So I picked up this Loctite Extreme Glue. I'm hoping that this doesn't have the same I'm hoping that it doesn't have the same effect. I'm hoping that it will keep the eyepieces fairly clear. but I don't know. And I could test this on a different piece of something else, but I'm not going to. It's probably the smart thing to do, but I'm not going to. If anything goes badly after this, then I only have myself to blame. I'm gonna get a Q-tip real quick to clean some of that up. All right, that one's in there pretty good. Now for the small one. And let's be honest, I'm not actually going to be looking through this to fire this at anyone, but it would be cool to be able to see through it still. I would like to keep that bit of functionality. Shouldn't be a particularly hard thing to keep, but I think that'll be all right. The both of those are set, and looks like it should take about 5 minutes for it to all set up. So, not too bad. So I'm gonna come back in about 5 minutes, and hopefully we can do the final assembly on this thing. Then we can do a little bit more weathering, and then I think that'll be it for this build. All right, you guys, my epoxy has set, and I gotta say, it did not fog up the clear plastic or glass inserts. They look pretty solid. So now, I think actually before I put everything on there, I'm going to give this a once over with some steel wool just to try to so I don't have to worry about those too much before I get them on there. And that actually might be a little too fine. Hang on a sec. All right, so I have some 400 grit sandpaper here. And I'm just going to try to scruff this up a little bit. Yeah. That's actually looking really nice. That's looking really nice on that edge at least. There we go. Well, that at least got the edges kind of nice. Took off the very outer layer and brought out the silver, but just on the edges. I'm trying to, let's see, what do I got? What do I have? Let's see what I can do with this screwdriver. No. What I'm trying to do is I want to bring out just a little bit of silver in some of these areas, but not too much. That's kind of starting to work. Let me see what I can get done with a little bit lower grit. All right, here's some 220 grit. That's working a little better. It's scratching it up a little bit, which I guess is better than nothing. Again, when you're weathering stuff, you don't want to be too consistent through the piece. You kind of want bits and pieces that are beat up. You don't want to hit the whole thing uniformly. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and start some assembly. Then I'll take a look at the whole thing together and see if there's anything else I want to do. But yeah, if worse comes to shove, if I can't get the effect that I'm looking for with this, I can always bust out some rub and buff. But I'd rather try to, because this is metal, I'd rather just try to bring out the metal on this, but we'll see how it looks. All right, you guys, I am calling this one done. I'm pretty pleased with this. I wasn't able to find a good solution to get down to the bare metal like I was wanting. I could have gone to a heavier sandpaper, but it would have ended up not being as smooth, and that's not the look that I wanted. So I ended up taking, I put on a glove, I put a little bit of rub and buff on my finger, and I just kind of streaked it through here so that it gives the illusion of some scratches and some wear. Don't worry, I'll show you guys an actual close-up, but yeah, I'm actually pretty pleased with the way this came out, and yes, I will go ahead and attach this to the blaster because that's what you guys came to see, what this looks like on the actual blaster. All right, so I have mounted my scope and the blaster. The rest of the blaster I haven't done anything to yet. It is essentially out of the box, but the scope has been finished and I think it looks pretty great on here. And I'm excited to get on to the rest of this blaster build, but for you guys, you're gonna have to wait until next time. So thank you for tuning in for this week's Scratch Build. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Hey, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it. That lets you know every time that we come out with a video so that you don't miss a thing, and it really helps us out with keeping the lights on over here. Thanks, guys.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control. 316, report to control. 53 to upper bay door. 53 to upper bay door.